Peter Smith was an avid nature lover who spent his weekends exploring the dense forests near Great Falls, Montana. Every Saturday morning, he would leave his home in Heron and drive for miles until he reached his favorite hiking trails. There was something about the solitude of the woods that called to him, the way the sunlight filtered through the towering pines, the sound of creeks bubbling over smooth stones, the crisp mountain air filling his lungs. He almost always hiked alone, preferring the quiet communion with nature over human company. On this particular weekend, however, his solitary trek would lead him to a discovery so strange and unsettling that it would haunt him for years to come. That morning, Peter decided to deviate from his usual route, venturing deeper into the forest than he ever had before. The woods here were vast, stretching for tens of miles in every direction, and he knew that getting lost was a real possibility. Still, the thrill of exploration pushed him forward. Just to be safe, he had told a friend where he was going and when he expected to return. If he didn't check in by nightfall, someone would come looking for him. After walking for about 3 kilometers, he stumbled upon something unusual: an old, dilapidated barn, its wooden beams sagging under the weight of time, its black paint long since peeled away. Nearby stood a stone building, equally abandoned, its windows shattered and its door hanging slightly ajar. The place had an eerie stillness to it, as though it had been frozen in time. Peter hesitated. His phone had no signal this deep in the forest, and the thought of entering a crumbling structure alone gave him pause. What if the floor gave way? What if something or someone was still inside? But curiosity gnawed at him. He had always been drawn to mysteries, and this place was undeniably one. As he circled the building, something caught his eye, a glint of metal half buried in the undergrowth. Kneeling, he pushed aside the thick foliage and uncovered a set of old wooden stairs, rotten and overgrown with moss. At the bottom lay a rusted metal hatch, its surface pitted with age. Peter tried to lift it, but the handle was too smooth, his fingers slipping uselessly against the corroded metal. Determined, he searched the area until he found a length of steel pipe, which he wedged beneath the handle. With a grunt of effort, he levered the hatch open, revealing a yawning darkness beneath. Shining his phone's flashlight into the hole, he saw a wooden staircase descending into the earth. The air that wafted up was damp and stale, carrying a scent he couldn't quite place, something metallic and old, like wet rust and decaying paper. For a moment, he considered turning back, but the mystery was too compelling. Carefully, he stepped onto the first creaking stair and began his descent. The tunnel was narrow and pitch black, the beam of his phone's light barely piercing the gloom. The wooden stairs groaned under his weight, and more than once, he feared they might collapse beneath him. After what felt like an eternity of slow, cautious steps, he saw a faint light ahead. The tunnel ended at a wooden door, its 2 small windows covered in grime. One was broken, allowing a sliver of daylight to filter through. Peter pushed the door open and stepped out, only to find himself standing right beside the abandoned stone house. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The tunnel led directly back to the surface. But why? Who would build such a thing? Heart pounding, he approached the house's front door, which hung slightly ajar, just as he had seen earlier. Summoning his courage, he pushed it open and stepped inside. The interior was a time capsule of neglect. Dust coated every surface, and the floor was littered with debris, broken glass, scraps of paper, the skeletal remains of small animals. Yet despite the decay, much of the furniture remained intact. A table stood in the center of the room, its surface scarred with age. A rusted bed frame crouched in one corner, its mattress long since rotted away. But what struck Peter most was the absence of personal effects. No photographs, no letters, nothing to indicate who had once lived here. His exploration led him to a set of stairs descending into a basement. The air grew colder as he climbed down, his phone's light revealing a low-ceilinged room filled with shadows. And then he saw Ita, large cube-shaped object in the far corner, covered in a thick layer of dust. Wiping it clean, he realized it was a safe. To his shock, the safe was unlocked. Inside, he found stacks of cash bundles of $100 bills wrapped in plastic, totaling what he guessed was around $3,000. Beneath them lay a small metal box, its surface tarnished with age. A key protruded from its lock. Hands trembling, Peter turned the key and opened the box. What he saw inside made his breath catch. Nestled in the box's velvet lining was a revolver, but not just any revolver. This one was made entirely of gold, its surface gleaming even in the dim light. The weight of it was astonishing, far heavier than any gun he had ever held. When he opened the cylinder, he found 3 bullets still loaded inside, 3 bullets remaining out of 6. Had the other 3 been fired? At the very back of the safe, half buried under the cash, was a moldy leather backpack. Inside, Peter found a collection of passports, dozens of them, from countries all over the world. French, German, Brazilian, but mostly Russian. Names like Andrei Rostov and Igor Nikolov stared up at him from the pages, their photographs showing unsmiling men with hard eyes. None of the passports were American. Peter's mind raced. Who had lived here? A criminal? A spy? The golden gun? The foreign passports? The hidden tunnel? None of it made sense. He knew he needed to report this, but with no phone signal, he would have to hike back to his car first. Carefully, he placed everything back in the safe, took a few photos as proof, and made his way out of the house. The authorities were just as baffled as he was. A detective specializing in Cold War cases took particular interest in the passports. After weeks of investigation, the truth finally came to light. The house had been a safe house for a Russian spy named Lev Orov, active during the Cold War. The passports were aliases, the gun likely a last resort weapon, and the money operational funds. Orov had died years ago. His story lost to history until Peter stumbled upon his hidden past. Russian authorities located Orov's surviving family, a daughter, now in her 50s, living near Moscow. The recovered items were returned to her, providing a strange kind of closure. As for Peter, he never hiked those woods again. Some mysteries, he decided, were better left buried. The house was eventually demolished, the land reclaimed by nature. But sometimes, when the wind blows just right through the trees near Great Falls, locals swear they can still hear the faint creak of an old metal hatch opening and the distant echo of footsteps descending into the dark.